industrial center for river restoration. You know, why not? Why couldn't Cleveland be that? Brownfields redevelopment, historic restoration, infrastructure renewal. You've got all of those challenges here. If your universities support research and curricula that turns out people who are expert in all of these skills, even community revitalization. You know, where can you go to get a PhD in community revitalization? One of our schools in our Revitalization Institute network has a master's in urban renewal. But there's tremendous untapped potential there. You know, for instance, civil engineers are still coming out of school having learned primarily how to build dams, drain swamps, and straighten rivers. But they get out into the real world and they find out the vast majority of the projects being asked to do are tearing down the dams, refilling the swamps, and unstraightening the rivers. And that's a totally different skill set. You know, I mean, 60% of the work that the Army Corps of Engineers does is renewal and restoration. Oftentimes undoing a lot of the stuff that they did in the previous 200 years. So that's a huge economy, $100 trillion worth of restorable assets, $2 trillion a year, no center. Every one of those, it's divided into 12 sectors, and Cleveland could easily become a leader in at least 9 of those 12. It just takes some concentrated focus. You've already got the raw ingredients. It just takes a little concentrated focus and the goal of becoming a leader, industrial leader in those areas, but it does take academic support. That's the key. You need to get the universities on board with this.
Mr. Cunningham, somewhat related to the last question, but you began by saying that in order to perform the restoration, you have to have vision in the community. In this area, in this county, you have a somewhat dysfunctional county government, and you have some 50-some municipalities within the county alone. I don't see anybody coming through with an overall vision on how to achieve the 3 or 4 objectives that you state. How do you, in your experience, how do you develop or find or identify people with vision, the ones that have a broad enough outlook to see the entire picture without, regardless of the fractionation of this community? What's your experience of that in other communities?
Good, yeah, one of my favorite subjects. And let me just correct one little thing. I didn't say you have to have a vision in order to revitalize. I'm just saying it works a lot better if you do. There are plenty of examples of top-down revitalization where a powerful visionary leader came in who had contacts with lots of money and just made things happen. And you can, you know, you look at Chicago, you know, they've never had a community visioning exercise there. But, you know, I'm trying to come up with universal principles that are the best way to approach it in most communities, but it's not always going to be the right thing at the right time if you've already got a one-man or one-woman renewal engine. But in most cases, the way to overcome this fractured leadership and lack of shared vision isn't to look for visionary people. It's to create that renewal engine organization, that permanent, usually nonprofit, but it doesn't have to be, permanent public-private organization whose sole function is visioning, culturing, partnering. That's how you get the shared vision for the community. Don't rely on individuals. Build the capacity of the community to do this stuff themselves. Anything that's dependent on individuals is fragile. You know, a bus can wipe out your asset. Yeah.
Mr. Cunningham, thank you for recognizing the Gordon Square Arts District as an example of re-wealth, and that is truly what we are. I live every day exactly what you're talking about, and I'd like to tell you the day-to-day frustration of that, of actually trying to achieve re-wealth in a community. The public funds, what the Gordon Square Arts District is, you know, we're revitalizing 2 theaters, building a 3rd, and creating a streetscape to really revitalize a whole neighborhood in Cleveland to improve the quality of life, also combining the environment with the lakefront. The problem is to get public funds, my experience is that it is very disparate. Just as this gentleman was saying, you have so many different levels of government. The federal government, we haven't been able to access those stimulus funds yet, which we would like to do. At the state government, well, we're told they're out of money, and we haven't gotten those funds either yet. The city is good, but it doesn't have money anymore, and the county's bankrupt. So, really, where are you going to get those funds from the public sense? So often, what you do in a capital campaign is you rely, and the statistics I have heard is 75% on individual and corporate help. Well, again, with an economy in disarray, in a downturn, where are you going to get the money? So I guess that's my question to you, especially when you're working with public assets, which I think theaters are. It's not private investment necessarily coming in. Where do you actually get the money to do that? I mean, we're doing it, but it's hard and long work.
All right. First of all, there's no real shortage of money. The money didn't really disappear. It just kind of changed hands. So you just got to look in different places for it. The key here, two keys. One is one tool, and the other is partnering. The tool is TIF. I'm sure you guys have used TIF before. It's a great way for a broke community to come to the table when there are state or federal funds available as an equal partner. One of the big problems a lot of communities have is when they are broke and federal or state funds come to town, or a big private redeveloper comes to town, they don't really have a whole lot of bargaining power because they're not coming to the table with any money. Tax increment financing is how they do it. Tax increment financing, when it's used properly, is the ultimate re-wealth tool. It's the only financial tool that was actually based on revitalization. Not originally, 50 years ago, but it is now. It's all it is borrowing against the future value of revitalization in order to fund the projects that will make that revitalization happen. So that's one thing. The tool is one aspect. The other aspect, and it doesn't fund everything, but it's the catalytic funds that get things going. The other aspect is partnering. The way Chattanooga did it is in their renewal engine. Remember I said one of the key things the engine does is provide a forum for partnering. What they did, whenever they identified a challenge within the community, decrepit old bridge, a brownfield, a historic neighborhood that needed to come back to life, whatever it was, they'd create a task team. Now, I'm not talking about a committee that's going to sit around studying something for 2 years and then come up with a report that nobody reads. They created a task team, and they specifically chose members for that task team who would be the most likely partners in an actual project, public-private partnership, to address it. So 3 months later, 6 months later, after the task team has addressed it, they've already got the people who own the land, the people with the money, the people with the technical expertise. Everybody is right there and up to speed, and they're ready to go, and that's how they did it time after time after time. Partnering is the key, and it's just a matter of creative partnering, and if you don't have enough money yet, just expand the partnership. It's the only way to get things done in this kind of economy, but the money is there. It hasn't disappeared.
Mr. Cunningham, I enjoyed your paradigm so enthusiastically presented, and I think you're correct in saying that a city like Cleveland needs to build its partnership for revitalization, whatever we may call it. But when that partnership is convening, it seems to me there's one asset that is more attractive than all the others, in part because if you can get this asset, it'll create almost all the others. And that is what might broadly be called a creative human capital. If you can be a place where people want to come who are in fact energetic and creative, that population will help you achieve everything else you've described to us as valuable. Could you comment?
Yeah, definitely. The human capital aspect of this is crucial, and that's really captured within that whole stakeholder engagement aspect. That's the power of that third renewal rule, stakeholder engagement, is that it brings the human capital into the equation, so you're not just dealing with physical assets. As far as the creativity is concerned, certainly creativity and innovation is a great thing. Unfortunately, in the last decade or so, there's been a bit of a fad on thinking that bohemians and creative people can bring any place back to life. It's a legitimate premise. I mean, you can point to a lot of places where the cheap, the dangerous areas of town were first inhabited by the bohemians, the creative class, and they helped bring it back to town. It's not a way of bringing a whole metropolitan area back to life. I mean, that's like coming across a person with 2 broken legs on the street and telling him to be more creative.